Happy Pride Month. This month, The Broken Brain is highlighting the charity Prism United. If you go to prismunited.org, prismunited.org, you can learn more about this wonderful program that helps out LGBTQ plus youth and allies, particularly those ages 14 to 18. They do advocacy, education, and hands-on activities to help. They use art, scavenger hunts, meetings with community leaders. They have leadership initiative programs. They provide legal support, mental and medical health care as well, finding and helping to network with those great services. So go to prismunited.org to learn more about and share and to become involved with this really, really great organization.
The Broken Brain.
Yeah.
Well, I try to find the Zoom record button. Love how it updates and moves it every time.
Yeah.
Recording in progress.
You now know that a recording's in progress. If we were in California, we would meet the demands of the two-party consent rule for recording. But where I am, it's only one-party consent, so I don't have to tell you nothing if we were both here. But we're not. We're over state lines. I haven't tested the law yet, so sue me and find out. I'm being very informal in this intro, which everyone who's listening knows is completely normal. But I'm really, really comfortable with my guest today. My guest today is Christian Hurst, who is the author of the award-winning Lily Starling Series. And those of you who've listened, when I have fellow podcasters on, we say award-winning about each other's shows in a joking way. This is a real award-winning series of novels. The Lily Starling science fiction, Lily Starling and the Voyage of the Salamander, Lily Starling and the Storm Riders, and now the third installment of that series is just out as of April, right? Lily Starling and the Death Machine. And even the most important credential that my guest has, of course, is that he's my brother, Christian Hurst.
Hello, happy to be here. Yes.
This is fun. I'm excited to have you on. This is one of those things that every so often I love when I get to say to people when they talk about different things in the arts or whatever. I'm like, well, my brother's a novelist. And they're like, ooh. And it's cool because it's real. But what you did, I mean, the first one won. What was the award?
Yeah, it keeps on hitting. To be honest,
there's been a couple, right?
Right out the gate before. So I self-published and Lily Starling and the Voyage of the Salamander. So I will say first that these stories have been like rolling around in my head for a long time. So, I've played with like writing short films and video games and all sorts of stuff like since I was a teenager, And so I finally if I don't get these stories out now, I never will, right? Because I'm like in my 40s
Very, very old. Right, exactly. He's
right.
younger than me.
Hey, if I'm decrepit, what does that make you? But
no arguments from me. I'll take it.
So I self-published the first one, and it was really well received. So I was like encouraged because I have a lot of other ideas. I was like, I thought about writing this comedy. I have this romantic comedy idea that I've wanted to write for a long time, and something about Mormon missionaries. To be honest, I have like a story about that. So all these ideas, but when people really seem to connect to the story, I was like, this is a series and I should continue it. So I started to take it more seriously. And one of the things I did after I was kind of starting to refine the first one is submit it for a Reader's Favorite Award. And it won bronze, which is great. I was very excited about it. But that I always say as a caveat, that was before I even had it professionally edited. So the newer edition has been through a lot more editing and refinement, and it's a lot shorter, actually. It was like 50 pages longer when I first released it. So now I've actually won a few more awards since then. This spring I won the 3 golds at the Book Fest. Nice. And then just now I won a NIEA. I was a finalist in 2 categories. So So yeah, it's
cool.
It's
That's
very
like just this is this is a exclusive. This is new breaking news.
You got the
Nice.
scoop. Yeah. So
Congratulations.
it is. It's nice because when you self-publish something, or even through a small publisher, you're like, is this good? You know,
Right.
because
Yeah,
I
you
think
don't have
it's
that
good,
automatic
but
somebody-
like I don't have as many gatekeepers.
Yeah,
You know, it's
yeah.
which is kind of like when I went into my most recent graphic design role as well. The people, I would design something and people would be like, "Oh, this is great," and move on, and it like blew my mind because I was so used to at my previous role having at least like 15 people sign off on it
Everybody
before
wanting
it was
rewrites and-
right.
yeah.
So there's that new imposter syndrome where like you're experienced, but you're also like, am I safe to just like put this out there? You know?
Well, that's wild too, because I mean, I know just being self-employed, and also, I mean, I'm sitting here, trying to create a thing all the time with the interviews and the podcast and stuff. So being in a creative space and an independent space at the same time, lots of room for self-doubt to be like, I mean, I hope, right? I mean, it's like, I hope that somebody's benefiting something. At least in my therapy work, I get some feedback from people that they seem to either, be getting better or something. And I'm, but when you're kind of like doing it yourself, yeah, you do have that piece, and it totally amplifies when it's on your own. Anyway, yeah, and you've done such good with it, and so I've always, you and I have always been very obsessed with storytelling and narrative, and
Yeah.
and you've been on the show before with our sister Amber also has joined. We talk about that. We made that was our gift on our parents' anniversary, as we were reading, like sharing short story little performances and things with them too. So we've always been very obsessed with that kind of thing. Anyway, so it's fun for us to be able to talk. And I know today we had talked about getting into a topic that it's near and dear to my heart, but I also was thinking about it because of your writing style. And I think, thinking about the episodic way of telling stories in self-contained, you could say anthology, but I think that, well, I'll say what I think the difference is. But talking about that versus what I think is more modern storytelling, which is almost everything that is serialized or whatever in an IP, is that there's story arcs, and we've come to expect that, way more than when you and I were kids. And I see, like, they have anthologies, obviously, that are made to say, oh, these are standalone stories. But nowadays, even anthologies, often after they have a season or two or, whatever, they start being like, oh, here's you realize these are in the same universe. Or whereas I think of episodic as like, you look back in time and it's like, you watch MacGyver or the A-Team or something, and it's like they can have major life-changing events in an episode that never come up again. They just everything is reset to one or whatever. So anyway, and I think you do such a good job of balancing that. So I thought it would be a fun thing to talk about.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it's fascinating because it's like everything went too far. I don't know if you remember that TED Talk that J.J. Abrams gave about the mystery box.
I remember it vaguely.
Go check it out because it was not mystery box storytelling wasn't something that like people were like evolved into. He literally stood up on a stage and said, "Here's the mystery box storytelling," and then everybody started copying it. But
and he did such a great, satisfying job with Lost. Sorry, no, go ahead. I won't open the beef about Lost that I have.
Well, and and that's the thing. It's like he, for better or for worse, introduced this idea of like there's this mystery at the end of this long story arc, and I think so. Everybody, when television started to become more cinematic with over the top or streaming networks like Netflix, everybody banked way too hard. In my opinion, it was like. It just all started doing that, and then now there's like this correction, and then there's this balance. So you do see it working better in some ways than others, but I think the issue now a lot of times is with the format itself, because I don't know if you watch Rings of Power, but I'll bring that up
I
because
did the first season. I can't remember how many seasons they've done.
So it went 2 seasons so far, but there were like 2 full years in between seasons.
Yes. And that's I want to talk about that
Right.
dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you get into the second one and you're like, I don't
What
even
the hell happened in
remember
the
who
first
these
season? I
people
don't know.
are.
Yeah.
And why is that kid 2 years older than he was in the like yesterday? So, I think it makes it tricky with the format of streaming because they try to make everything look like a movie, where I would love like a good old fashioned shitty network show.
Yeah. if you
like
follow
poor effects.
And I would recommend it. Jason Pargin, who has written the John Dies at the End series, amongst some other.
I'm familiar. Yeah.
He's a great follow on like Instagram, TikTok, wherever. He puts up reels all the time. He's one of those that even when there are some things he says that I quite disagree with, but they're always still thought provoking. But
right, exactly.
He just did, and he's done a series where he's kind of lovingly poking fun at the show Reacher. Which definitely deserves both sides. It's a fun action show, but it's ridiculous at the same time.
Yeah.
He has a whole series about how, this guy wins by being physically bigger than everyone else all the time.
Right.
But he just did one where he said, for people of his generation, he's just a few years older than me and us, whatever, generationally. So, or chronologically also, that's how numbers work. But anyway, he was saying he's like those of us of a certain generation, when we find out, oh, this is episode 8 and also a season finale, he's like, we become a little furious because it's like, if this show is made and he compared it to Magnum PI, which the run of the show had almost 200 episodes, right? And he's like, he's like, there's no reason you couldn't think of, he's like, give me one night and I'll come up with 200 Reacher episodes, by the morning.
Exactly.
And so, there is that kind of feel of like going back, and that's a great point. The mystery box obsession. And this is one thing that I've heard TV writers talk about this, that the public is now expecting everything to be completely mapped out, that they already know what they're going to do, and that we're planning on 5 seasons, and this is going to be the end. We already know everything. And the point that I keep hearing them make is they're like, very, very, very rarely there's some truth to that, but vast majority of the time, either they're not really saying that because it's not true, or they are saying it and it's not true, because they don't know.
Exactly.
They don't know how many they're going to get to make,
Right. That's totally true. And I think, but you also take some of the life out of it. If you've been sitting on ideas forever, there's this thing in art called overworking, where like you could tell in student work, especially, where like the student focused on one part of the drawing way too long. And so that it looks like weirdly out of perspective, even if it's proficient. Mm-hmm. And like, I think that applies to so many things. If you are with a story for too long, it can feel very overworked. Like I like to wait right until like I have like kind of foundational moments and like an outline, but I like to wait till I'm very close to actually releasing something to actually write it. And I try to write it in like a linear fashion, because I just think it feels more fresh, because you're like, you don't have the opportunity to go back and just like rework it endlessly. Mm-hmm. I think that's because I come from the advertising world, and that's like, if you rework a concept too many times, it's just going to be terrible. And you give everybody a chance to weigh in, and like then it becomes committee, and
I've interviewed several indie filmmakers over the years, especially this year. I got a bunch of them, and it was amazing to me. So many of them have gotten jobs filming and directing in advertising before they get into their projects. And damn, they can make a short film like... It is like, boy, we got 5 minutes, and it is, better than some 200-minute movies or whatever that are out there. They tell a story so fast, they get it and just punch you in the gut. And it's like, give that person a feature. So you have limited real estate to work with, and you have to get it. So that's it. I didn't know you did that. You just do that like, it's due tomorrow. I'll go ahead and, maybe not that close, but I knew you're writing this third one right up until you had said,
pretty much. I mean, it was, again, the story is done, but like
Yeah.
Writing the meat, I just hate to overwork it. I don't know. And I know some people, it's like the opposite. They're like, well, it just feels kind of like the dialogue.
Yeah.
A lot of people really like my dialogue because it feels more natural. But then I've heard some people say, well, people are just like saying what they mean. Like people don't do that as in real life. And I'm like, meh, well, in my mind, there's two good ways to tell like a long overarching story. You could tell it like a film, or you could tell it like a soap opera. And we could learn a lot from like soaps and like watching ER, or like Star Trek Deep Space Nine did this, right? Where it's like you have these long storylines, but it wasn't like, here's the one thing that we're all wondering about all season. Because if you fuck that up, then the whole season is shot, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what's this mystery? And then it's like, the guy had mayonnaise in his shoe. Oh, okay.
The famous, I remember that episode. It was the Ferengi guy, I think, who was putting the mayonnaise in everyone's shoe.
Right.
No, that makes a lot of sense, because I think the obsession with payoff, and this is something I had heard as a possible explanation of M. Night Shyamalan's bumpy career. I would say mid-career, because people don't realize that even when his name wasn't in vogue anymore, he's been working, making, he'll fund a movie, it'll make a little profit, or he'll write behind the scenes, or he'll punch up scripts. He's been working the whole time. Now they feel comfortable putting his name on things again. For now, I don't know if Trap helped with that or not. Although I like Trap, but it was silly. But anyway, one of the things that happened is the Sixth Sense, and this is just a theory that I like, is that the Sixth Sense made such a splash with a surprise ending that he almost immediately became known as the surprise ending guy. And so then when some of his surprise endings didn't meet everyone's cup of tea, or glass of water, if everybody knows the reference I'm making to the one that seems to piss the most people off for some reason. But the fact that he had to put a surprise ending into each single one, and everyone was expecting it and then was either happy or let down by it, became the definition of his career. So when he made Lady in the Water, he still had to put some weird twists in that didn't make sense with this bizarre fable he was trying to tell. And also people didn't. And so I'm actually a defender. I liked Lady in the Water for what it was trying to be. Right. But the fact that it had to be like, oh, here's the twist. It's like that. It doesn't even belong in this story. Right. And it totally overshadowed, some of the good performances and things that, that they did. And what was his name who did the lead in that movie? He's your friend on Facebook. Anyway, Paul Giamatti. Anyway, your best buddy. When I got this was wild. I got a friend request a while ago, or no, a friend suggestion on Facebook, Paul Giamatti. And it said, friends with your brother. And I was like, oh, it must be fake. And you're like, nah. Anyway, but it was a Star Trek thing, right? I think. But
yeah, Star Trek group.
But so I think that that expectation that everyone has of there's this payoff that we're looking for, and with the internet culture, it's like we are already so ready to be pissed off.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the problem is you can't just be mid on anything. It's like you have to either love a film or hate a film or whatever it is. But if you'll indulge me for a minute, because when I was writing the first one, the first book, Lily Starling, if anybody's read it or if you want to go read it, it's kind of broken into little mini episodes.
Yeah.
Like a season of television. And I wrote it kind of like a streaming series where it's like the serialized chapters or episodic chapters and then kind of a overarching story. But I did that on purpose because I realized that because I think very cinematically when I tell a story. But I realized jumping right in with these characters into a long novel, like the second book, which is more of like a movie, right? I realized that what the benefit of those old shows, like the original Star Trek, which had 30 episodes in a season, or like you were talking about some of the other older shows where they make one season of television with 30, 40 episodes.
40 episodes, right? Yeah,
which is insane by today's standards. But even network shows, I think, don't do more than like 18 or 20. But one of the huge benefits of that is the chemistry of the cast solidifies, and you get you start to care about these characters as if they're real people, right? And so I thought in the first book, if you put them through all these very different situations in one book, that by the end of it, you would have felt the whole range of emotion and then actually cared more about the characters. And then like from that point on, my plan was always to write in more of like kind of like a movie or like one big arc with like still a couple like, episodic adventures on the side, but more of like an overarching story. Like the third book is really Lily's journey through this like being a victim of the system and that kind of thing. So it's not really broken up into episodes, So, but I think that it gives you an opportunity to care about the characters.
So having a sense of balance, because the definition, to me, the definition of balance is not equity or complete flat, right? Balance is going up and down as needed. I think like a teeter-totter. Kids wouldn't have fun on a teeter-totter if they're trying to not let it move. Or if they did, they'd only have fun for like 10 seconds and then they'd start bouncing again. Right. Most kids. But that idea of I'm leaning into what it needs. Am I attending to the arc or am I attending to I hadn't thought about it that way. How you say the episodic is, we're getting to know the people on a deeper level. And I think maybe people skip over that sometimes, right? When it's just like, I'm thinking about the way that, I just watched the redo of Scrubs that came out on Hulu or Disney Plus. They're the same thing now, I guess. But, and I started watching some of the old ones again and everything. And it was like, I actually think they did a really good job with that one, but I don't remember if it was 8, 9 or whatever, but there was only 8 or 9 episodes for a whole season. And that's a whole different ball game. And it forces certain, I really actually liked it. And I think they did a good job, but it's like, I'm used to getting more development with these people. And, and along with that comes some of the little contradictions or little silliness and some of the things about the original series, which it was sort of like a live action cartoon was the thing. And so there were a lot of things that were never trying to be serious that in a new 8 episode season or whatever, that you have to be like, almost like they're shooting for a higher concept with everything. If that's a good way to describe it. I don't know if that's a good term to use.
No, I think you're right. And I think you saw that with the Orville. I don't know if you ever watched that, but
I didn't see that one.
Third season came out. They kind of rebooted the show, and it was a slightly different format. I think it was mostly successful, but there were, I think you have to be careful because a lot of what people liked about that show is that it was campy, and so when they got a little more serious, it lost some of that. But
and they're trying to do that with a lot of the things from when we were younger. And I'm thinking about this. I have not gone to see the Masters of the Universe movie. I'm sure I'll see it probably when it streams or something.
Right.
From what I understand, it's not good. At least that's the feedback I hear from everyone.
Right.
But I think that it's like, once again, trying to take something that was never... there were no story arcs in He-Man. It was like, and so you take... I mean, I'll use that example, trying to make it like this high concept super thing. They're like, there's a sequel coming. I don't know if there's a sequel coming based off the box office performance of like trying to be like, here's this, and we're gonna embrace it and make it this big thing. And compare that to the reboot they did of She-Ra on Netflix, which it had a lot of episodes and it was very, very good, but they did preserve, and it had a story arc, but it preserved the episodic and some of the silly campiness that were little nods to that type of humor and that type of story. So sometimes they pull it off, and sometimes they just either don't or can't. I don't know if the source material always lends itself to that,
It's true, yeah. Well, you said something that I want to go back to where you said like getting to know the characters better, but then you said on a deeper level. But it's almost the opposite of that, because it's like, think about your own life on a daily level when you or a daily basis when you problem solve. You don't learn any big, huge lesson, or you don't have it like that. Earth-shattering things don't always happen, right? Yeah. It's like in the streaming model, something seismic has to happen in every single episode. I love some of those Star Trek The Next Generation episodes where like literally nothing happened. It was just like a day, or like a regular cadence, and then, well, things happen and they have to solve the problem, but like nothing happened in their personal lives.
Yes, yeah.
Because we don't have to have growth every single episode. It's like, you can have that, but like once it starts to get old, when it's like I think that was what you kind of saw surface level, how Kirk and Spock would handle this situation without having to dive into their personal lives constantly, Yeah. And if you have 30 episodes, you can still get to know the characters just by their like the way that they interact. It's that show and don't tell thing. It's like, they're showing you who they are by reacting to the situation in front of them, instead of having to like do a montage of Spock as a child and when his mom was mean or whatever. It's like, we don't need all of that all the time. Again, I think it's good sometimes, but it's like, I don't know.
Well, it depends once again on the type of story you're telling, but that's a really good point. And it also, there's an element of that does mirror the real experiences, because you don't get to know all your coworkers that well. Or even you don't necessarily like, well, it's the difference between saying like, oh, by the way, this is a big angry guy and here's why, versus like, oh, we know he's a big angry guy because he's angry all the time. And we've seen it and we've had more time with him to see that. And also, I do think that there is an element as well of kind of not telling everything. And once again, people get really obsessed with, I got to know the backstory. This is actually, I think, the biggest plague of Star Wars. There's lots of talk about Star Wars. They've lost this or whatever. And, I'm the kind of Star Wars fan who enjoys watching Star Wars things, which means I'm not, the top fans hate all the content. But, but you have like, oh, we should have a spinoff series about the monster that lived in the trash compactor in the first episode or whatever. They should have a movie or something. And there's this backstory that's very, very exacting. And sometimes it's good to be like, I don't know. Yeah, why did they do that? I finished the movie and I don't really know why they did that. And nowadays, once again, people get kind of pissed off about that, where I believe sometimes not over-explaining is more interesting, because you don't know everything in a real life experience.
Yeah, I agree. It's like the Book of Boba Fett, where you take the most enigmatic character in Star Wars and then give him an entire backstory, like,
and have him taking over what essentially turns into a civil service position.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So it just different choices, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's interesting the way. Well, and also, I mean, even the one, Mandalorian and Grogu, a lot of people are having a lot of fun with that. I haven't seen that movie yet either, but my understanding is it's like 2.5 to 3 episodes of the show, which is another show, that worked better, in my opinion, when it was embracing the episodic nature of the wolf and cub light arc, but at the same time just going and solving, little adventure problems. And you could have done 1 million of those.
Exactly. That was the show that was like perfectly set up to have 20 seasons. Yeah.
Exactly. And then, but then of course you go back to the idea of like, well, we need to know what happens, and there has to be an arrival, which also goes back to what you just said, which is we don't have that in real life. And how do we mirror,
right.
You got to wrap up things somehow, I guess, in some instances, but that's where I'll use an example too. Here's an episodic thing from a while ago. That's why I think one of the greatest series endings of all time was Parks and Rec, because they spent the whole final season, and especially the last episode, they did a lot of flash forwards and things to be like, oh, these characters that we've come to know really well and, are trying to be these good people and everything. We see that they have a life, that they're going to have a life and keep going. And we see little highlights of that life, and not necessarily, the concept of like, okay, we're good now. All the stuff we struggled with for the past 8 seasons is now solved, and everything's cool. And
Right.
So yeah,
Right. I agree. I think that's totally true. And I think that a lot of times franchise thinking right now is through the lens of, well, we have these actors for about a decade before they're too aged to like keep using in the same arc. So how many movies can we fit in there? And, what's the end going to be? It's like, that was what happened eventually with the Avengers movies. They're, whatever, the first round. I haven't really kept up with them after Endgame.
Oh, they're doing the next one and bringing everyone back.
Right, I did see that. Yeah, with Doctor Doom and everything. But
even he's an actor. That anyway, yeah.
Right, with Robert Downey Jr. But it was like, oh, how do we end this story? Well, just make them all old or kill them. It's like it's like that. We always have to have that, like, how does this character die? We must put this person in the ground before we can finish this, trilogy. Where it's like the Indiana Jones movies. I always loved that the Indiana Jones movies, you could have made 1 million of them, but there was restraint. Like that, I love a little bit of restraint in storytelling. Where it's like, here are 3 amazing vignettes into this character. It's a movie. We don't need to go in, and there was the Young Indiana Jones series and stuff, which was fun. But
yeah, that's a good series. I don't even hate the last 2, but they're silly.
I don't hate them, but I'm saying you don't need to you don't need to keep going. You don't need to like. Harrison Ford is an old man. Leave
exactly
him.
Right. Exactly. Even that was pushing it a little in the last one. Although, there's some charming things about it. But one of the things I'm glad that they didn't do, that they did talk about, there was some scuttle or some whatever buzz about this, is they talked about doing a James Bond with Indiana Jones, where it would be like, let's bring in, I know that some fan casting was like, oh, make Chris Pratt or, Brendan Fraser Mummy era or whatever, those types of chatter about like, maybe we should, because then you can keep doing them forever. And I'm not saying they won't do that. Who knows if they'll try to do that, but that would be kind of obnoxious to me.
I agree. Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, people can disagree with that. Maybe they'll make a great one starring, Barry Keogh or somebody. I don't know who, but maybe it'll be great. Who knows? But I don't think it would be a good idea.
And a lot of times, I mean, we got to just let art be especially storytelling, be a product of its moment in cultural history as well. It's like, you and I grew up on the classics. I mean, like reading like good books, you don't have to like have a new Huckleberry Finn where he's like in the 20th century or whatever. Like, he was in the 20th. You know what I mean? 21st century. There we go.
Right. Modern times or something.
Yeah. Modern time. Like not everything has to get a reboot. Not everything has to be like, well, we refreshed it for modern audiences. Like, Amelia Bedelia has like a new series. There's like, they reboot these kids' books all the time. They're like, Nancy Drew, now she wears shorts or whatever. I don't know. But
she does. Hold on. I got to order something on Amazon real quick. They finally went there. Change of wardrobe. Yeah.
Or, it's, I think that's sort of franchise logic.
I think, now I will say this because I know anyone who knows me out there is saying there's a hypocritical flavor to what I'm saying, because I'm also a fan of anybody try whatever they want. So this is a little bit of a conflict inside myself.
Totally.
Because sometimes a shitty thing will lead to a good idea or even a good scene, or it gets a director or somebody or a screenwriter the next job. I get that. And then there are things that are cheesy just to say, I mean, I think Edgar Wright, when I've heard him interviewed, is just like, he's the one who did the latest Running Man, right? I'm not mixing him up with someone else. And
I don't know.
Anyway, so come at me, people, if you want. But I've heard him interviewed where he's kind of like, it's a popcorn movie. I just made it for fun, And if you don't like it, I don't really care,
Right.
But so, and also, I'm not opposed to reboots, because you come up with some really cool ideas.
Me neither.
You look at Wicked or whatever. That's like, oh, here's a new take on an old classic. So it is weird, but But I'm with you. I think that it kind of, whether or not it's good is what we're talking about. Whether or not, does it make the case for itself to exist?
Right, exactly. Like, I don't know if you've seen that, you know the show Ghost Rider on PBS that we watched when we were kids?
Wow. I'm excited to hear what you're going to say next.
They made one on Apple TV. They made a new
I didn't know
version of that show. Yeah, I just found out about it. And it's like Emmy winning. It's a really good show. And so it's like things can come out of the weirdest things. I absolutely reboot stuff. Yeah, absolutely. But I think don't just do it. Sometimes it's done lazy. Sometimes it's like we're going to just do this again.
Well, we
need something to do.
Exactly. And does it stand up or does it do? I don't think I'll use that example again. That I really like. The things that I have seen that they've messed around with He-Man hasn't been as successful. Whereas with the She-Ra thing, once again they kind of stayed true, and they updated as far as they introduced a lot of queer characters, and they had a lot of the female warriors at different body types. They look like different people instead of the same, like the Tila Evelyn situation where they're literally the same mold, just different colors. DuckTales is also an excellent example of a great reboot because when you're watching it, you can tell that the people who made it loved the original and they added some story arc, and they definitely made the characters more interesting, and deeper but because they just weren't doing that in the 80s and 90s or early 90s, whatever. They just weren't. It was just totally like nobody even thought they wanted that. And so, anyway, so when there is a good, and I guess we're kind of coming down to a balance of like, how do we balance those things? And do we do it on purpose or just because, you all want a He-Man movie and you're all stupid, right? Here, we'll just make this one. I haven't seen it, whatever, but I'm just saying that's, that type of approach to something is like,
I was kind of disappointed when I heard that it was going to be like the Barbie movie and it's like meta and like farcical, because I actually was kind of hoping that they would do like a proper like swords and sandals and take it seriously.
Why does it always have to be on Earth? Why is there always
instead of just like, like, okay, it might be funny, make it a joke or whatever. Is that what it is? I didn't know that. So he's going to be like, hey, your extendo neck, I was a toy of you when I was a kid or something like that. No, not quite that. But it's like Skeletor is like cracking jokes or like there's like, I don't know. The scenes I saw, it was like he was like, when I raise my fist in the air, then I'm done. And like Alison Brie is Evelyn is like, yes, sir, we'll remember that for next time or something. I don't know. It's just like the kind of meta humor where it's But I was kind of hoping it would be like,
essentially what the cartoon was trying to be was just an adventure with a character. It's so interesting to me because the first Masters of the Universe, which is campy and silly and nothing like the cartoon, it was made back when people would say kids like this and kids are stupid, right? So just make whatever. We don't need to watch the source material. But they have to have He-Man on Earth in some way. And in the old cartoon, it was funny because they never mentioned Earth until they wanted to make a Christmas special, and then all of a sudden we found out his mom was from Earth for some reason, and they're like, she's from Earth. He's an astronaut who crashed Planet of the Apes style or some bullshit. But that was it. It wasn't like, let's go to Earth now or whatever. It was like, no, this is a fantasy story. So, exactly.
And I like the first one. I know it's a cult classic, but it's so goofy.
That's exactly. It is. It's become
you know what I love about those movies? That like, you look at some of the actors who are in movies like that, and you got to hand it to them. It's so like brave. Anybody who's ever done any acting will understand what I mean when I say it's brave to fully commit to a role like that, because there's like these, now you have like, we could call it, it's kind of tongue in cheek and it's like fourth wall breaks and stuff. But like back then it was like, you've got this shit glued to your face and you have to like go, man. Like you are that character. And so like it's impressive, like the way that
Dolph
they
Lundgren
could commit
to that role. I mean, he was
and
I'll bet I keep saying, who knows, but I wouldn't be surprised if he made a better He-Man than the way that they shot this one. Now, nothing against the actor, and maybe he does great. It's a different character, but Dolph Lundgren, I will say one thing that was it is he was a character that was like, I'm a He-Man warrior person, and he was committed to being that
Right.
warrior person, you know. That is interesting to say. How do people sort of commit to it?
Oh yeah, I talk about that with Star Trek all the time because it's like, and it's in modern Star Trek too, where it's like you've got the goofiest situations, like, and these actors are like in it, you know.
Yeah.
And so they get teased because it's like, look how stupid he looks. Well, yeah, but like, aren't you impressed that he's
Yeah, if
like
he was trying to
really
be
acting
cool
his ass
during
off?
it. Yeah, if he's trying to be
Right?
cool while doing that scene, it wouldn't work at all, right? It wouldn't be fun.
Anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. I remember one of the first times that I remember there being story arcs is, I don't remember which one came out first, but Twin Peaks and X-Files, because I remember seeing there was like Nightline stories or whatever about how, like, I remember there was some news story where they're talking about, the X-Files is doing these things, like there's an ongoing story, and it became a thing. If you see the smoking man in an episode, you know it's going to be part of the big conspiracy story, and if you
Right.
didn't, it was a one-off. And so, and then Twin Peaks, I remember watching. It was like, I think it was like 20, like Nightline or Dateline or some. It was a real, like, they did a thing on it where they put up like a big whiteboard of some kind, and they put pictures of all the characters, and they drew arrows how they're all connected in a derisive way, in a way of saying like, look at this, there's all these things you have to know and that you learn about
Right.
the characters when you watch this. What is this? And now, and I think those revolutionized storytelling in a way. They did launch us
Absolutely.
into something that was a good tool, but but trying to find where do we kind of
Yeah, because it really just used to be soaps. It was daytime soaps were the only thing that were written like that, and so people would make fun of. That's what happened with Star Trek Deep Space Nine. It's like people made fun of it because it had these serialized storylines, and
I liked that one. It doesn't seem like it's as popular.
It's the best one, but it's funny because when it was in between shows, and so when they announced Voyager was coming out, they stopped paying attention to Deep Space Nine, and the studio had always been like, stop doing these serialized storylines. Like, people get ticked off because if they miss an episode, they don't know what's going on. But then when they stopped paying attention, they just went all in. That's a good show.
I remember. Is that the one where the Doctor was a hologram, or was that Voyager? I don't remember.
That was Voyager.
That was Voyager. Okay. So see, this all. I don't know the whole Star Trek lore as well as you do with that too. So, but I did think it was interesting. What was the new one? The one that came out that was Captain Pike's kind of. It was a prequel, Final Frontiers.
Strange New Worlds. Yeah.
What was it called?
Strange New Worlds. And that had the good balance between an arc and exactly.
That's what I thought, is that it seemed like they even brought back some of the silly fun of the old 60s series, which you can only take yourself, like once again, you go in and act it all out, but there's a camp to it when you're having somebody literally pull a door open with a string every time or something. It's just like, you can do what you can do, but then they're not afraid to make a little comedy in there too. Yeah.
Right. And that, especially the first season of that show. If anybody, go check it out, because in my opinion, there's nothing closer to a perfect season of television than the first season of that show. And they really hit the balance right. It was like kind of an overarching story, but only it was overarching character development. But then each episode had its own, standalone sort of theme and moral and everything. And it was very tight, because I think they rolled out with that season very wholly baked as a season, and also kind of fast, which again, like we talked about earlier, is kind of the best combination. But
you first.
No, it's just the show season 2 was okay, and season 3 was kind of meh. But I'm hopeful for season 4.
I wondered, was you're looking at the longevity of the series, that you're how much do you think about where is it eventually going to go versus were you thinking about book 3? And I don't know how complete the story in your head was before you even started writing. So I'm just curious for your creative process. Is it like, oh, I'm writing this and I'm planting things and I'm thinking about, book 7 or whatever?
Yeah. So I had like pages of ideas that weren't they were mostly kind of like episodes. And so I knocked a bunch of them out in the first book. And then I sort of assigned them to moments in time after that, because I'm like, here are the things I want to hit, and then which ones can I connect, and it sort of started to take shape. And then after the 5 books that I'm in the YA series, after these 5 books are done, I do have another 5-book series planned out. That's more of an adult sci-fi series where these characters are a little older. So, so yeah, but it is mostly like a list of ideas. It's taken a lot of shape since.
Yeah, does telling the story change? It sounds like so you're talking about kind of having a framework and some details sprinkled in there, but and also when you're creating a story, don't you? What's the old expression? Kill your darlings. Like don't hold back from changing gear or
don't get married
off.
to anything. Yeah. Because like when I was like 14, I read this comic books, the graphic novel of Batman Contagion. I don't know if you've ever read that, but
I read your copy. No, I read it back then when you did. Yeah.
Exactly.
I always tell people about that because that's just as a little note. That's one that I've often wondered if they could do it on the big screen in a way that would work as well. But it's a great, it's Batman fighting a
stuck with me
virus, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Stuck with me for the longest time. I always wanted to do a virus as a backdrop. And then COVID happened. And so like when I was writing the 3rd book, I had always intended to have the virus story in there. And I'm like, can I do this because of COVID? But as I started to develop it, I was like, yes, I'm actually going to change some things so it's a little more recognizable as like a pandemic response, to where, yes, I think some people might be like, I'm sick of hearing about pandemics. But also, it's nice to work through that. It was nice as an artist to work through that. There were a couple times writing that book that I was like, that was cathartic,
Yeah. How much does the audience factor in for you? Because I know that's all the stuff we're talking about, we're mostly talking about movies and TV shows. And if people think, oh, they have this artistic vision that doesn't change at all, and like I said before, it's usually a lie if they say we've got it all planned out. So they may have a framework,
right?
But to say they're definitely going to, we got this feedback in between seasons, especially since they have 2 to 5 years in between seasons, to say here's what people hated. We're probably not going to do as much of that or whatever. How do you deal with feedback or whatever?
Factoring feedback. So. Not much, to be honest, because it's like the story that I want to tell. But there are, so from book 3 to 4, I have made a couple changes. In the way I'm introducing the characters, for example, because I think some people who read 3, who were jumping into the series, especially reviewers, were like, I don't know what any of this is. And I think when you have a long running series, that's kind of normal. But I'm trying to do a little soft intro for each character in book 4, just in case anybody jumps in who hasn't read the other books. But so that's a little piece of feedback that I'm, taking to heart.
Interesting. So more
for the most part,
formatting and ways of telling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but like for the stories themselves, I don't know. I think it's better if the storyteller tells the story they're trying to tell and doesn't like change it for, based on like pop culture and stuff.
When you talked about giving a little quick backstory to each character, I don't know why, it reminded me of the Babysitter's Club novels, where it's like, Dusty, I don't know any of their names, but
exactly.
Dusty came in the room. She was an athletic type who just didn't take any guff from anyone. And here came Marie. Yeah. She was really, really dainty and loved tea parties or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
it might be a little more. You might not do it that way. I don't know.
I think if you write like a long running,
there's like 900 books in that series, right?
Yeah, because you're not gonna read them in order, but it's that same kind of mentality, right? That's more of an episodic story, and so you're jumping in. You're made to be able to jump in.
Well, one of the things I hadn't thought about this, but and this is a series that we I think I inherited my love of it from Mom, which is the Nero Wolfe detective series by Rex Stout, and I had read they released whatever version of them. I think it's the most common version of them. They're all numbered and they have cool art on the front and stuff, but they all have an introduction from some well-known author talking about how cool Rex Stout was and what they love about the series. And Rex Stout was a great advocate for free speech and things like that. So very interesting person. Don't at me if horrible things have come out of it. I have no idea. But anyway, and the whole work that's put into that story is the world of the characters. They're, interesting, weird kind of characters. But I read this one intro where he was talking about the fact that if you look at it, there's enough, I think there's like 20 something of them, if I'm not mistaken. And they take place basically in whatever year they were written, but you don't really get a feel for the characters aging. Like you don't really they fit just as well into the 1960s as they did into the 1940s or whatever. And you don't necessarily get a feel for this has to be this has to be that. One of them takes place where they're actually working for the U.S. military intelligence in World War II and solving some case for them. So there's a little bit of a time marker. But basically the idea is that they are actually little references here and there to experiences they've had. At one point, a long-running character dies. Right. One of them actually, someone they know for a lot of novels turns out to be the murderer in one of them. No spoilers, but his name is redacted. So, no, but so there's a few little things sprinkled there for continuity, but mostly it's just kind of, hey, here's this adventure with these really cool, goofy, goofy's not the right word, but really cool, somewhat funny, but also really intelligent, smart people, and have at. So that's another good example of balance, I guess, is what I'm saying. So, in the book world.
Absolutely. It's one of the reasons why I like to write space opera, because you could set it anywhere. It doesn't have to be in space. It could be like on the bottom of the ocean. It's like these are human stories, and they're outside of any sort of, real history. Especially
because you introduced time travel. I don't know if you're going to use it, but you could. So you literally go any when.
Exactly. That I'm finishing the fourth book now, and it is time travel, and it will give you a headache if you're not careful.
I just hope they have to go back in time and save or get a secret message from the whales so that they can do something. See, there's a deep cut for everybody out there. Maybe, I don't know how deep, but...
Stop the JFK assassination.
And then find out that it ruined the world like it always does. Every piece of fiction I've seen where someone goes back in time and stops the JFK, they go back to the present and it's completely destroyed society for some reason. So you'd think whoever writes those loved JFK, but then they're always like, and then he hooked up the entire world, apparently. Got to go back and execute him yourself. In the episode of Red Dwarf where they accidentally prevent the JFK assassination, JFK goes back in time and is the second gunman because he realizes that anyway, whatever.
That's what you have to look it up. I won't share it now for interest of time, but Gene Roddenberry and Spock on the grassy knoll. You have to look it up.
Whoa! Okay, that is a homework assignment I will take. Yeah. Sounds like a Thursday History episode for Patreon of a weird history thing. Well, this is really cool. You and I know that we could and have probably gone on a lot longer than this with this, and we will later on together off mic sometime, obviously. But tell everybody before we go, how they find Lily Starling. What's the best ways? I mean, we're not in pre-order status for anything right now, but where do they find the books and what can they do?
Yeah, you can pre-order the fourth book. It's out in September. The first three are available where books are sold. You can find me at C. Hurst Publishing on Instagram or TikTok, or go to christianhurstpublishing.com or lilystarlingbook.com, or just Google me.
There is a... there's a great thing you do on your Instagram. I really like when you do the game random page where you'll just flip open one page of your book and you just read it to people. So which I think is pretty cool. I hadn't seen that before. So if you got it from somewhere, don't tell me. I'm just going to believe it was your idea.
No, I made that one up. It's
Nice.
perfect because you have infinite content.
Yeah, exactly. See, that's any content creator should find a well like that I was going to say a well to mine. That's a mixed metaphor. So we'll end on that because my brain is apparently not working anymore. It's broken. So thank you for listening to The Broken Brain. And everybody out there, you'll hear we have our little plug for our monthly charity up top. And just a reminder, if you choose to become a Patreon subscriber, 50% of your donation, which is Prism United LGBT rights and things. A little more detail up before we started the episode. 50% of your donation will go to Prism United for the duration, every single month, for as long as you are donating. And the same for whatever our highlighted charity is of each month. So thank you, everybody. And thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
The D Coffee Foundation for Athletics and Education is working to provide college scholarships to underserved student athletes. We sponsor athletes in showcase games where college recruiters can see them. However, a significant gap exists. These talented individuals cannot afford to participate on showcase teams, leading to missed opportunities to improve their lives. Your generous donation has the power to transform lives. Even a small donation can make a significant difference. Please consider donating at extremeballers.com/donate.